Whether or not you've heard about eGFR, it's a test you've probably had run on your routine labs before. eGFR stands for Estimated Glomerular Filtration Rate, and it's an algorithm that providers use to estimate how well your kidneys are functioning. If you have heard about eGFR, it might be because it has generated a lot of controversy lately, due to the fact that one of the data points it takes into account is the patient's race. And this is important in large part because studies have already shown that this race coefficient makes it more difficult for patients who are labeled as Black to be referred to a specialist or to get on a kidney transplant registry. So first, how does this equation take race into account? In short, one of the characteristics that scientists think is relevant to measuring kidney function is muscle mass. But since muscle mass is difficult to measure, they instead use demographic variables that they believe to be associated with higher or lower muscle mass. One of the variables that they chose as a muscle mass stand-in was race. As a result, if your medical chart labels you as Black, your kidney score will be boosted by 18%, as you can see from the 1.180 coefficient on the bottom of the slide in the red box. So this is how it becomes more difficult to get on a kidney transplant registry if you're labeled as Black. So that's the how. What I wanted to know is why. So it turns out this algorithm is pretty old, but it didn't always have a race coefficient. The paper at the top of the slide was the equation that was used before 1999. It was published in 1976, and it does not have a race coefficient. In 1999, the paper at the bottom center of the slide was published. It developed a new iteration of this equation with a race coefficient in it. I wanted to know why all of a sudden race became relevant to this algorithm in 1999. So to study this, I collected the citations from the 1999 paper that were relevant to studying racial difference, and I turned them into a citation network. By mapping and analyzing both the articles and the citation connections in this network, I was able to trace the assumptions about race that culminated in a race coefficient in 1999. So one of the key things that I found is that the authors in this citation network did not cite any empirical evidence that muscle mass is associated with the Black racial category. Instead, what knit this network together is a common assumption or paradigm. Authors in this network cited papers that were operating from the same assumption, that racial difference is biological, and this assumption shaped their study designs, the data they collected, and the way they explained their results. Assumptions about race were strengthened in this network in this way. If everyone in your scientific world thinks that race is biological, then there is no pressure to provide scientific evidence proving it. So understanding the history of the race coefficient provides insight into what assumptions are embedded into eGFR, and this is a contribution that will be critical to debates that are ongoing, both about the eGFR race coefficient and the role of race in medicine and science more broadly. Thank you.